Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of New Age Life Podcast. I'm your host, Garima Nabh, and today we have the beautiful Rosalyn Palmer. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Not a lovely introduction. Thank you. I'll take that. With the beautiful you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's very kind of you.
You look very young, so that's why I was like, that was the first word that came to my mind.
Well, I was actually 60 last week.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was my 60th birthday last week. So
wow.
yeah,
You don't look
I think I'm gonna have to do courses now on how to stay looking so young when you're 60.
You don't look more than 40.
Thank you. A lot of people have said that. And the best bit was I had a party and people came and they went, "Oh my God, you even look young in the flesh." It was like, what do you think I'm doing on screen? I have no idea what you think I'm doing. But they were like, "Yes."
I guess everyone, people will be asking, what is your secret to,
Well, I think, we're going to talk about that in a way, aren't we? So I think it's a lot of things. I think the secret to looking young is just the secret to having a balanced and a good life, really. So the two are pretty much the same, really. So my kind of recipe for how do you have a good life is probably the recipe for, oh, and by the way, you look quite good on it, Yeah.
Yeah. So you are a coach and a therapist. Is it hypnotherapist I saw on your profile?
That's right. Yes. Well, I'm trained in clinical hypnotherapy, which is probably the traditional kind of hypnotherapy, and I'm also trained in advanced rapid transformational therapy, and that's a sort of a hybrid therapy that brings together clinical hypnotherapy, some psychotherapy, some CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and some NLP, which you've probably heard lots about, neuro-linguistic programming. So it's a kind of a super therapy, if you like, that brings together a lot of these really very useful therapies, which are really all about changing behaviors, and quite rapidly, actually. So they're not sort of let's be in therapy for the next 10 years kind of therapies. They're more let's go and work out what the root cause of your problem is and deal with it and help you, be happier and healthier going forward.
Yeah. Is it the type, like I have seen on television that the therapist will have something like a pendulum to make the patient go into some type of trance or,
Well, no is the answer. I suppose, the way they portray clinical hypnotherapy on television is probably about the same way that they portray some policemen or women, or some doctors and nurses. And I'm sure there's other doctors and nurses going, it's nothing like that when we're at work.
Exactly.
That's a movie, or that's a series. And so I think it's done for dramatic effect. I'll put it this way, I don't have a clock or a pendulum, and I've seen that movie Get Out, where she can hypnotize him to paralysis. Well, if I was that clever, I have to say there's a few people I'd put on my list, maybe starting with the tax man, but
oh my God.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? We don't have that kind of weird power. And obviously it's clinical hypnotherapy. So it's a form of hypnotherapy that's done for the benefit of the client, in a much more a clinical, psychological understanding kind of way. I've been to those stage shows where they hypnotize people and make them pretend to be a duck or something, and no, the two are not on the same page.
I know there was one Indian show, so-called reality show, in which they hypnotize the participant, and then the participant will start babbling about his previous life, something like that.
Oh yeah,
and then of course they will not use any ordinary human being, they will use celebrity. So I was like wondering that, how can you
yeah,
go to that level,
Yes, well, it's not just that it's a celebrity. I mean, when I went to the stage show, I actually even was one of the people who went on stage, but I was out for, I think, a hen party, like about 20 years ago. And I'd probably had a couple of drinks and we were all being a bit silly. And so I was sort of up for it, so to speak. And it was all part of the show, if you like. Whereas if you're clearly somebody who's very depressed or got a behavior you don't want, you're not there for the show, are you? You're there because it's your life and it's affecting your life. And there are a percentage of people in any population who are more susceptible to being hypnotized than others. And these stage shows and these programs, even the ones that are probably using celebrities, they work out if they're the really highly suggestible ones. And so, of course, they have those ones on the program and then they make it look like it's all really easy.
Exactly.
And they only got to click their fingers and everybody's going to fall asleep and do weird things.
Yeah.
Whereas probably 90% of the population, that wouldn't really apply to anyway. So we do in hypnosis, when I work with people, we take them into trance, we take them into this altered state of reality. But we go into trance every day. I mean, I was driving on the motorway once and I was like so in my head about something that I missed 3 junctions of the motorway. I was supposed to come off at junction 25, and by the time I noticed where it was like junction 28. So I wasn't like not in control of the car, and I was there, but I was sort of somewhere else in my head, which meant I wasn't noticing that it was my time to get into the exit lane and leave. That's trance. It's like when you walk into a room and you go to get something and you suddenly go, why did I come in here? That's trance. Or when you kind of sit down to do something and it's an hour later and you think, where did that hour go? So trance is a natural thing that we go in and out of all day long. So what we do is get people more into that place so that they're more relaxed, so that we can get deeper into understanding some of those core beliefs and things that are going on in their psyche that are really controlling the way they think and feel and behave, because they're thinking and feeling and behaving in a way they don't want to do anymore. And usually they've tried all sorts of things to change it, and then they feel like a failure. Let's say, for example, they drink too much. I don't want to drink too much. I know it's unhealthy for me. I've tried quitting over and over again. Something just keeps bringing me back to it and I don't even want to do it. It's because there's something very deeper inside. And so what we do is get people into trance, but really a relaxed place, so that we can deeper understand what those issues are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's
we don't make anybody dance with a broom or pretend that they're
It's to do with the psychology, that you go deep into the person's psychology to the root of the matter.
Yes, and your psyche, your subconscious, will not let you do anything that really, truly, genuinely you don't want to do or isn't consistent with your values. It's why, in a horrible example, you could say to somebody, if you don't shoot that person, I'm going to shoot you. And quite a lot of people wouldn't be able to do it, because it goes against their values. I can't kill somebody. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Even if you literally were saying, if you don't do that, I'm going to shoot you. There are people who wouldn't do it. And so they stay consistent with what they would or wouldn't do. And your subconscious is this, like that all the time. And so any behavior you do ultimately has to be consistent. So to go back to the kind of crazy stuff, being silly and under hypnosis and doing crazy things, you've kind of got to be open for doing it. If you're a very, very, very sensible person who would never pretend they were a chicken, you're not going to do it even under hypnosis, okay? But if you're a celebrity and you're probably a bit of a show off, and a bit of a, and a bit of a,
Drama.
whatever. Yeah, then you're going to do it, aren't you?
Yeah, like a drama queen.
Exactly. They don't even really need to be hypnotized to do it, do they?
Of course, of course. And then added to that, the show will even add the dramatic music to,
Oh, of course, and make it all look
and
so much more.
and then the audience will be like, what?
Oh, exactly. Yes, and they make something out of nothing, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how did you start this your profession of hypnotherapist and coaching? How did you start it?
Yeah, so I mean, officially, I have been a hypnotherapist and coach for 6 years, as in that is, my identity. That is what I say I do. That is what I've put my focus into. I have a former career in PR and marketing at a very, very high level. Okay. So in the 80s, I worked for theatre PR and all the major agencies like Lynn Frank's PR, which is what the series Absolutely Fabulous is based on, in London. And then in the 90s, I had my own PR company, which actually won Best Small PR Company in England award.
Wow.
And I was highly successful. So very, very successful, life in the fast lane, PR and marketing. I had a massive house in London. By 40, I had £1 million. I had an 8-bedroom house. I had an award-winning. Yeah, so I was like the poster girl for being really successful, but I was really, really, really miserable and broken. So, and I come from very humble background as well. So even more so, I was like, I'm a grocer's daughter. So, my parents were grocers. They ran the little shop on the corner, and I lived above the shop in my early years. So I was the first member of any of my family, my mum's lineage, my dad's lineage, to go to university. I mean, my mum's mum worked in a mill in Yorkshire. My dad's mum was the shopkeeper, and then all the rest of the family went down the pit. So I come from very working class, humble parentage and upbringing. I went to a comprehensive school in Nottingham. And so I became this kind of poster girl for kind of life in London, and I married somebody who went to school with the royal family, and it was a very different world, to the world I'd really grown up in. And by 40, I'd sold my company, and we moved, and I moved to live in the Bahamas. So I was a bit like, I've pulled it off. I am
Bahamas.
My parents, it's a wonder they didn't burst with pride. It's like, look what our incredible, hardworking, clever daughter has done, with all her life and all her hard work. But I was really very broken, because the cost of doing that, certainly throughout the 90s, was 80-hour weeks, very little life outside of the business, long hours. It's a very pressurized world, PR and the agency world and media and London. I paid a lot of the price with my health. I couldn't have children. It didn't happen. I had illnesses, really bad illnesses. I had dengue fever. I was bulimic. You throw up so that you can stay slim. I don't think I was completely depressed, because you couldn't really run a PR company and do that. But I drank too much. I didn't get enough sleep. So I was paying a very, very big price for the success. Okay. And I thought I'd managed to pull it all off. I thought I'd dodged a bullet, as they say. I thought I'd gone, I'm hanging on by my fingernails. But I've just managed it. And I moved to live in the Bahamas because my ex-husband was from there, and I had 2 kids who I'd adopted by that time. And it just all went totally and utterly wrong. If it could have gone wrong, it went wrong. So from sort of leaving this kind of, look, I've pulled it off. And I was always a lovely person, just so you know. I mean, I've got friends and colleagues and clients still from the 90s. So although I lived in that rather strange and crazy world at the time, I was very grounded, because ultimately I come from working class family. I come from very grounded, normal people. I'd always be the one kind of, in a room with celebrities or the royal. I worked for the royal family, just so you know. I did the Duke of Edinburgh's PR for a while, but I'd always be the one there going, oh, have you thought about getting a cheaper toilet roll? I mean, I was like, literally, I was like the really, kind of normal. I was a normal person, I think, in an abnormal world. But it really cost me. So I didn't know, I didn't kind of know who I was. I felt like I was always pretending to be something I wasn't. I had to always be up and on it, even when you're exhausted and you're having a really bad day. And I had a lot of illness, because I'd been very ill as a child. In fact, I died when I was 1.5. And really my health, my immune system, my strength, my body wasn't great. And so I was doing lots of really good things. Like I had an Ayurvedic doctor. I was vegetarian for a long time. I had massage every week. I had acupuncture every week. I'd go on retreats and juice retreats, and I think I've sat in wigwams on top of mountains. I mean, you name it. I kind of did it. Also, I had a very strong religious faith, and I think that kept me, very grounded. I'd pray and I'd meditate, and so I think all of those things, thank God, kept me alive, because on the other side is crazy hours, loads of drink, too much rich food, kind of life in the fast lane, pressure, the phone not stop ringing. And I just about kind of kept that balance. And I thought, I've managed to pull it off. Look, I'm 40 and I'm a millionairess, self-made, get me. And then it all went horribly wrong, basically. So went to the Bahamas, and I think I had about a year when it was sort of okay, but the kids weren't in a good place. I wasn't really in a good place, because I went from being identified through my job, through my career, being very driven, to suddenly kind of being a housewife, and I remember being at the school gates picking my kids up, and this American woman who'd never worked, because there was, in the Bahamas, you have a lot of people who, their husbands, particularly back in the day, have very big paying jobs with banks or with whatever, kind of expats and people like that, and the wives just sort of drink gin and play golf or tennis, and I'd been the breadwinner, I'd been the one doing the 80-hour weeks, and suddenly I've got a woman kind of asking me, how do I make my cupcakes? And I'm like, I don't make cupcakes. I don't even know what. I have no idea what. I buy them in the shop. What are we talking about? And so I found I couldn't relate to these other mums. I just found it really difficult. So I felt, and I'm in a strange country. I'm a minority, the white, a minority in a black country. I'm suddenly in a very different place. I'm in a foreign country. I'm not working. I don't have my identity. I don't have my friends. I don't have my family. I'm an immigrant. I'm in a minority. I'm culturally different. I can't relate to the other mums. I mean, it was very lonely, actually. I felt very displaced, but I did my best to kind of make something of it. So I volunteered at the church, and I went to a book club, and I got very obsessive about exercise, because I had to put all that energy somewhere. So I would run 5 miles every day, then go to the gym, and and I was like super fit.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like ridiculously super fit. I mean, to the point where they were kind of saying to me, oh, you could like enter competitions,
Be a model.
Well, I was really underweight, because I was still bulimic at that time, and so I wanted to keep my figure. So I was only about 7 stone, which about 98 pounds. And although I'm quite small build, but I was still I was underweight, basically. And I just started to not feel very well. And I kind of thought it would be okay. Then my dad had a stroke on my birthday, which was awful. And he was really very, very ill. And I had to go back to England, of course, to be with him. Came back. The day I came back, my dog had just been run over. I found my dog dead at the side of the road, well, dying.
Oh my
That was
God.
really... And then my ex wasn't dealing very well with everything, which of course I didn't really understand at the time, but it was up to him to kind of now take care of us all as a family, because I couldn't work there. I didn't have any immigrant status, any residency status. I was just on a 1-year, visa kind of thing, and you're not allowed to work, and they're really strict in the Bahamas. If you work illegally, they kind of deport you. I mean, seriously.
Like in the UK.
Yeah, but even more so because it's a very small island, and so island nation, they don't want, quite rightly, they're kind of protecting their incomes, I suppose. So I couldn't work. He had to do the work. I didn't realize really that he was coping really badly. We went to wind up his father's company that was supposed to be worth millions and millions. He found out it wasn't worth anything. It was bankrupt, in fact. Wow. And instead of telling me, he used our money to prop the company up. Yeah. And I didn't know. So this is all going on. Then my dad's had this stroke, and then my dad got really depressed. So I'm going backwards and forwards doing that. I'm not feeling very well. I then find out I have breast cancer, and a really bad aggressive breast cancer. It's like, what? How can this be possible? I'm so fit. Look at me. I run 5 miles every day. All that stress and strain and everything had taken its toll. So I'm then having treatment in America, which is a completely other country. People are taking care of my kids I don't even know. I go through cancer treatment, which of course, isn't a barrel of laughs. Also in a foreign country, if you think about it, and nobody came apart from my husband, because my mum's in England looking after my dad, all my family's away. People are looking after my kids. And then I come back and we moved to an out island, to a farm, which was lovely to get better. But it was basically a very wooden, primitive building with no heating and literally not even glass in the windows, in an out island, which I then find is full of all the drug dealers in the Bahamas. And it's a very, water comes from wells, so.
Oh my God.
It was more like Bear Grylls than Love Island, It was like, there was no luxury. I had to gut my own fish. I started eating fish because I was so underweight. There was nothing I could eat on the island. I grew my own vegetables and fruit. And then we have a hurricane and it destroyed everything. And then I don't feel very well, so I go away. We have another hurricane. There were 2 that came back to back, and what hadn't been destroyed got destroyed. And we didn't even have any phones for 3 weeks or electricity. And then my mum rings me and I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, I'm not very well. And I get to the bottom of it. I fly back to England, and then I'm sitting in a hospital where she's told she has 6 months to live because she has terminal pancreatic cancer.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then I go back to the Bahamas. And then I discover that my ex-husband has pretty much gone through most of our life savings. So everything we had and we went for, and I'd spent 20 years killing myself for and thought I was going to be okay. So I pretty much in the space of 2 years lost everything. I lost my marriage. I lost most of the money, not all of it, but, I lost my home, I lost my marriage, I lost my identity. I then lost my mum because I came back to England and she died. My dad was in a really bad place. I then had a secondary cancer scare. And so from leaving from this 8-bedroom house in London and $1 million in the bank, I ended up a single unemployed mum with 2 kids in a rented house in Nottingham, having to reinvent myself.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's why my book is called Reset.
I think after listening to all this story, I think I have to read your book, because that's a really long and, really sad.
It is sad, you know, when
stories,
you
you
hear
know.
it. But the thing is, I never really, there was a point. There was a point. There really was a point. I mean, the week I buried my mum,
Hmm.
and the divorce was very messy and it was very horrible. And the kids, you know, nobody was in a good place. There was a week when I genuinely did one night get all my sleeping tablets out and sit with a bottle of whiskey and think about killing myself. And that was the absolute low point, the absolute point of no return, when I decided, you know, we're either going to go one way or the other at this point. And that happened that week.
Hmm.
And I didn't, you know, because I couldn't leave my dad. My dad needed me. I couldn't leave the kids. And because I have a faith, really, I was like, this is probably your karma. This is your journey. This is, you've got things to learn. Okay, it's not much fun at the moment. But, you know, this too shall pass. And I did come through it. And so that was the low point, and clearly all the things surrounding my mum were probably the low point. But my own cancer, I was okay about it, actually. I was like, I just had a faith that I'd get through it, and that I would prevail. And I had a kind of I think that working class background I come from, you know, and you know, parents generation who came through the war and everything. I just had a resilience and a grit that never made me feel sorry for myself or feel it was a nightmare. Never. I never, ever thought that. I was just like, whoa, get on with it. You know, there was a point, yeah, that week, I think particularly that week, because I'd seen my ex and it was nasty, you know, divorce and everything. But then I remarried and I recreated myself. I went back into marketing and PR, but I worked for a training and development company. So probably to answer your original question of how long have I been doing therapy and coaching, in the 90s, I had a lot of really high profile clients, including Tony Robbins, Edward de Bono, Brandon Bays, Robert Holden. So I did their PR. I made some of them very famous. And so I was immersed. Yeah, seriously. I was immersed in that world of personal development and coaching, NLP. And I even did training in hypnotherapy with Paul McKenna and Richard Bandler in about the mid-90s. So the roots of the career I do today go back to the mid-90s. I actually trained in those modalities and I understood them, but it was more because I was a spokesperson for it. I was, you know, dealing with people and helping them. I wasn't really seeing clients or setting up a business, but the roots of it go back to the mid-90s. And then in the about sort of 2006 or 7, when I sort of reinvented myself the first time, I ended up working for a company called Go Mad Thinking, which is a training and development company. And again, I was on the marketing side, but I was immersed in that world of big corporate coaching and development and business strategy, etc. And so I was immersed in that. And then I became head of marketing and PR for an international charity, the Leprosy Mission, because I wanted to give something back at that time. And I'd remarried. I'd got quite a nice house. I was living in the same village as my dad. I felt like life had reached some sort of new, I was wrong, just so you know, some sort of new even keel. And so I thought, oh, I'll give something back. And so I'll work for a charity. I'll bring all my skills, training, everything. And I worked for the Leprosy Mission. And people with leprosy are probably arguably the most marginalized in the world, most stigmatized. I mean, you'll probably know in India, they're below the untouchables.
Yeah.
And so I spent, it's really terrible. And I actually lobbied for a lot of changes in legislation in India because there was so much anti-discriminationary legislation against people. So I spent best part of 5 years in Africa and India and helping the world's poorest people. And that was incredibly life-changing, you know, and there's nothing like standing in Mumbai with somebody who's got no fingers and lives in a tarpaulin under a flyover and all they own is a tin cup, to actually really put your shit into perspective, to really kind of go, I think I had it hard. Maybe not. And so it was a great, it filled me with a lot of compassion and a lot of love. And the downside was, at that time, I hit the menopause really badly, very early, because obviously of having had the cancer. And my second marriage did not work. And I realized it wasn't a values match, and it wasn't really a good match. And I think I just thought that it was an escape from everything that had gone horribly wrong some years earlier. And that was really not a very nice time. And I really, again, lost sense of who I was. The menopause made me think I was going mad. I thought I got Alzheimer's. I'm forgetting things. I've got fuzzy head. I'm putting weight on. I'm bursting into tears. It was horrible. And there wasn't really a lot of help then, because it was about 15 years ago. And I think we've really got a lot better today about menopause, mental health, workplace stress, all of those things we're so much better about. We weren't great about 15 years ago. We really weren't. And I just sort of had to kind of muddle on through, and it was horrible, really. And I think I really lost myself a bit at that point, and I felt quite depressed, actually. And the doctor put me on antidepressants, because this is what you need. You need some nice antidepressants. And I was on antidepressants for 3.5 years. And I know.
Did it help?
No, I don't think it helped at all. I think here's what I needed, with hindsight, I needed a damn good cry. I needed a really nice person to put their arms around me and tell me everything would be okay. I needed not to be married to somebody who was actually not being very nice to me. I needed probably a week's holiday. I needed maybe a good therapist so I could have a good chat about how I felt. That's what I needed, not a tablet. That really, And of course, I got kind of stuck on them a bit. But then I came off, and then I did have some therapy. And it was at that point I thought, and now I'm going through a second divorce. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in my 50s. I'm going through another divorce. Well, actually, what happened was my dad died on my 50th birthday.
Oh my God.
My dad died of a heart attack on my 50th birthday. It was like, thanks for that. And I was really close to my dad. I'd moved to live in the same village as him. I saw him literally every day. I was his carer. I took a day off. I only worked part-time so I could take care of him as well. And I think that just took the carpet out from under me again. It was like, what am I doing? And so second divorce, dad died, menopause, realizing I don't want to be on the antidepressants. And there was nothing wrong with the job. I mean, I loved working for the leprosy mission and being in that world, but it was all part and parcel of my whole life. Just again, didn't feel like it wasn't the life I wanted to be living. And it was at that time that Marissa Peer created this new therapy called rapid transformational therapy. Now, she's known me since the mid-90s. I met her at a Tony Robbins course in the mid-90s. I even went to her for some hypnotherapy in the 90s. And we'd been in touch, and we're friends, really. And I was literally at this point, I do believe in synchronicity, the universe, all these amazing things. And I was just literally thinking, okay, what now? And this email came in my inbox going, I've got this new training, this new form of therapy. I think you'd be brilliant at it. Why don't you join the course and come along? And I just thought, I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to go. And I literally got my first client the day after I graduated. The day after I graduated, and I nailed it. And I was like, oh, I think I could be quite good at this. And with hindsight, it's because really I had a grounding in it since 1995. It's because I'd had a grounding in it for 20 years. Also, and I'm unashamed about this, I've been so broken and screwed up and in horrible, terrible, difficult, challenging places that I know what it feels like to come through. I know now how to get people through, how to take them to the other side. And I do it with compassion and love. And, and I never judge, because there, but for the grace of God go I. And yeah, it actually makes me very good at what I do.
Okay. Okay,
Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought it?
Yeah, I think we have heard enough of the the past. It's I have absolutely no idea what you must have gone through.
Yeah, but
Because
I don't have anything other than love about it all. I really don't. I think it's karma. I was supposed to learn all these lessons, so
yeah.
Yes, let's not talk about the past. Let's talk about the future and the present.
Yeah. So okay. So after you said that after you finished that program, you got your first client. So and then from there you started building upon your profession.
Well, I was a trainer as well, because it was so new, this form of therapy. They needed people to be trainers. So for about the next 10 courses, I was a trainer. So, and I really enjoyed that, actually. It was like a new kind of area for me, doing training and development. Well, I'd worked for a training and development company, but actually doing it, I really enjoyed it. And that was lovely. But it also meant that I got really reinforced with the methodology over and over and over and over again. So I really, really genuinely, deeply, understood it. And then I trained as a coach. I'd already been doing coaching and worked for coaching companies, but I thought, well, I better maybe just, do it so that I can say I've done it.
Yeah.
And I trained as a coach, because what happened was I was working with people who were coming to me, clients, and they were having the therapy, the rapid transformational and clinical hypnotherapy. And for issues, for something that was really, really troubling them, for something that's really holding back their life, their joy, their health, their being. And we were getting to the root of it, and we were shifting it, and they were feeling a lot better and great and very excited about their life again. And then they were like, what next? And I would be like, well, I clearly understand business, because I built a really successful business. I've got A-level economics, and I've lived in business world. I understand business. So I was kind of doing coaching without realizing it. And they'd say, oh, can we have some sessions about that? And I'd go, yes, absolutely. Let's have some sessions about that. And I realized that the combination of the two was like really powerful. And so that's what I offered. And so I put this package together where I'd offer the therapy and then the coaching. Oh, excuse me. And I won an award for it 2 years ago. So
Wow.
I won the Janie Loves Platinum Award for the best coaching program, basically. And it was based on results. And so I also wrote my book, Reset, 3 years ago, and I won an award for that, because not only is it...
You have been getting a lot of awards.
I know. I'm going to need a bigger shelf. Get a bigger shelf, I tell you. And so what made me very, very happy about this is not only is it quite a lot about me, semi-autobiographical, but it's full of advice. So what it is these are some things that happened to me. They might happen to you. This is what I did when they happened to me. This is the advice I would now give you if that was happening to you. And so it's a blueprint for people who are maybe, but also with my story interwoven. But what I really love is people said, and it's really well written. Because my love is literature, and I'm now an author in 4 books. I just spent this weekend interviewing the top authors in England for a book festival. I interviewed Sir Michael Morpurgo, who wrote War Horse, and So I'm now an in-demand interviewer for these literary festivals, which is really fantastic. I get to meet these amazing people. And next year, I'm going to write my novel. I'm going to write my first novel. So next year, I'm
wow.
my first novel. I'm very
So
excited.
all the books you have written so far, they are not novels.
No, they're self-help.
Okay.
They're non-fiction, so they're help. I've written this one all myself, and then the other ones are collaborations. So there's Ignite Your Life for Women, Ignite Your Life for Change Makers, and Ignite Your Female Leadership. And then my book. But no, I'm going to write an actual novel next year.
Wow.
Because I'm a wordsmith. I love words.
Can you give us an idea of what story you have in mind?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. So
maybe give some little hint,
Yeah, well, no, it's set in the Bahamas, so that's for sure. Because when I lived in the Bahamas, I kept diaries every day. So, and you actually couldn't make some of the stuff up, particularly when I lived on the outer island. This kind of more remote island with drug dealers and billionaires, very strange people. So so all the characters, are kind of drawn from those experiences, and it's going to be a story about redemption. So it's going to be a story. And I had originally made it. So I did a screenwriting course. So I was going to make it into a movie, but then the cancer didn't happen. I went to New York, did a screenwriting course, and then it all went out the window. And I'm going to change it because of this weekend, because the first author I interviewed this weekend at the Boston Book Festival was an authoress called Millie Johnson, who's written loads of books, and she's fantastic. And she writes about women of a certain age. And she said that they're often very underrepresented in literature. And so my main character had been a male lawyer, but I'm going to make him a female middle-aged PR woman. So it's going to be a story, funnily enough, about a woman who kind of loses everything and the life she knows, ends up in this strange place in the Bahamas, and then through the people she meets and the things she does, really gains redemption and rebirth. Of course, none of it will be drawn from me whatsoever. But they say you should write about what you know. And I think I know when I tell my story, and I know when I work with my clients, because a lot of my clients they're mostly CEOs and top execs, because at the end of the day, I do understand business and I do have a business background. But women CEOs in particular, like 40 something, 50 something, they're exhausted, they're being pulled in every direction, and they might have the big house, and they might have the nice car, and they might have the lovely holidays or whatever, but they are exhausted. They are those ones hanging on by their fingernails. And when they get to work with me, they go, oh God, I can see that how to get to the other side. You can relate. Yeah, and that you can take me to the other side. You can take me to literally the promised land, the place I want to be, which is to have the lovely things, but not to pay the price for it, not to have to pay the price with my health, with my marriage, with my children, with my sanity. And that's what's happened over the years. People have this fantastic success, but they pay the price really badly with these terrible things. And I now I'm going to take you across that ravine, if you like, and we're going to get to the other side. And you don't have to lose everything you're working for and want and have gone to university and striven for and everything you want, but you're going to have balance, and you're not going to pay a horrible price for it. And they love that, and they sort of really relate to me because they know I'm talking from truth, and I walk my talk. And so I think having those kind of women in my book is going to be perfect.
Yeah, it is really difficult, especially to keep a balance between your professional and personal life.
And it's men too. It's not just women. I probably work with as many men as I do women. Interestingly, I have a lot of Asian businessmen who I work with, because you know, they've all done well, usually, you know, because they were that generation that went to university and their parents really sacrificed so much for them, and they wanted them to be lawyers or doctors or, you know, whatever it is they are, and they are doing that, but they never know how to take their foot off the accelerator, you know, and they're exhausted, and they're like, actually, I'd like to just go for a week and, you know, but I don't want to let everybody down. I don't want to let my business down. I don't want to let my family down. I don't want to let my kids down. And they don't know how to get that balance, because you know, you have to have balance. You will burn out otherwise.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's especially in this modern time when everything is fast paced, you know, a lot of competition. You are expected to stay at the top, or, you know,
Yeah.
be current in your field, and it's really exhausting. By the time you finish from your work, you go home and you don't have time for your family, or you don't have time to socialize, you know.
And then you wonder why your teenager is self-harming. Or you wonder why your son just dropped out of university, you know, because you didn't spend any time with them, or because they actually look at what you're doing and they think, oh, is that why I'm working hard? Because I'm going to do that. That's not very,
yeah.
you know,
Then
that's not a good carrot.
Teenager will be like, no, I don't want this life, you know.
Exactly. And of course, that generation, you know, that younger generation, they don't want to make some of the sacrifices that my generation or my parents' generation has made. And, you know, sometimes I think, well, you know, you can't have everything given to you. But equally, I think they see the price that we, or many of my generation, my parents' generations and the other generations are paying. And they're like, I don't want to pay that price of admission. If that's a club and I have to pay that price of admission, can I go to another club, please? So it is about balance, always about balance. And I used to say that I dealt with people with burnout, and of course I do. Some people will come to me because they are burnt out, but I want to be the burnout prevention queen. I'm really all about, I call it alignment. And my course, because I have a 13-week course, and they're all top CEOs and entrepreneurs who are on it, and it's called the Realigned Leader. And what I say is, you're going to realign yourself so that your inner life, how you feel, how you think every day, being you, feels and looks as good as it does on the outside. Because a lot of people have the outside trappings, but they are not happy.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, look at celebrities. Why would they kill themselves otherwise?
Or sometimes their children also, like, you know, go into the wrong track, you know. Maybe they go into taking drugs or doing illegal stuff, and then some of them can even end up committing suicide, you know.
And it's all about feeling empty. It's all about not having that alignment, like I say, between when you wake up and you go, this life feels as good being me inside as it looks, or as I'm striving for, or as people think it is. And that, my friend, is the secret, is the magic. And I'm now working with people to enable them to have that. And I have it. So after two divorces and taking the plunge to do online dating, I am in the best relationship of my life. I live in the countryside. We have 3 acres. I have sheep. I have turkeys. I have chickens. I have dogs. I have cats.
Oh my God. You have
I'm sure I've got them, and I can't even remember.
Zoo.
Yeah. Well, it's a small holding. And I gave birth to, I gave birth. I didn't give birth personally. I helped give birth to lambs this year.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I've hand raised a lamb and turkeys, and nature for me is, the great, it's the best health you can get. It's the best therapy you can get. And so I walk my talk. I've reinvented my life. I've recreated that balance. I'm aligned. I feel absolutely authentic. What I say is what I do. And I like to think, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I can help you.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a natural thing that whatever experience you have gone through in your life, or whatever you have learned, you would like to help others or pass on that knowledge or the help, so that others
Yeah.
can also benefit.
That's right. And that is such, as I say, I do believe in a sort of a karma, and I'm very, very settled that was what all of my challenges and trials and adversity was, to kind of bring me through all of that, so that I can now help other people who are maybe going through it.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to contact you for your services, how can...
Well, I'm all over the place. I've got podcasts, books, you name it. But probably the best way is just to go to my website, which is www.Rosalyn Palmer, ROSALYNPALMER.com, rosalynpalmer.com. Or if they just want to drop me an email, just go for hello@rosalynpalmer.com. So hello@rosalynpalmer.com or rosalynpalmer.com, or if you just put Rosalyn Palmer, you'll probably find me all over social media. And I've got loads of free stuff, because probably that charity time I spent particularly, I know not everybody can afford private therapy or coaching, so I've made loads of resources available. I have a really good informative newsletter, so you can sign up for that. You can get the freebies. There's free downloads, hypnotic downloads, or contact me and we can talk about my other services, my courses. I've got this online course. I do one-to-one coaching and therapy. And yeah.
Yeah.
Love to help people.
Yeah, no problem. I will include all those links in the description box. And thank you so much, Rosalyn. It was very nice having a chat with you, listening,
Thank you.
about your life and the way you are trying to give back to the society despite, all those,
all the curveballs.
Yeah, I was just, after listening to all your problems and the way you have rebuilt yourself, I'm just thinking about those your exes, that I hope they, if they get to know about your success, I hope they will regret.
Well, I really don't talk about my exes, to be honest, and I can't answer that question for you. But what I can tell you is 2 years ago, I did go to the Bahamas for a holiday, because I've got lots of friends there, and my former mother-in-law threw a party for me.
Oh my God.
My former mother-in-law, and she told me how proud she was of me, and I think she definitely wishes I was still in the family.
Okay, and what about her son?
I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Okay, you didn't meet him, or?
No, I mean, it's fine. At the end of the day, he's the father to the children we have together. There isn't any kind of animosity there. Here's what happened. I genuinely, in that marriage, I feel marriage or a relationship, it's like there's an elastic around it, okay? And I think what happened was just too many things happened, the cancer, the hurricanes, the family issues, the money loss, the different countries, everything else. And I think it's a bit like stretching an elastic band. And I think that elastic band just broke. And it's sad, incredibly sad, but I think that's the way I look at it. So it makes me bear no ill will.
Yeah, you're very
It's not worth
strong.
it. You can't. There's a great saying, isn't there, that if you resent people, or if you're kind of angry towards them, it's like you're carrying around a cup of poison with their name on it, but you get to drink
Yeah,
it all the time.
yeah.
You've just got to move on. You've got to forgive, move, and here's the deal. I'm in the best relationship of my life. So thank God I'm with him.
That's good for you. Finally, you have
Thank you.
settled down,
Yeah.
So I wish you all the best for your
Thank
relationship
you.
and your life.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much.
yeah, thank
Bless you.
you. Thank you. So,
Thank
I hope all of you enjoyed listening to this interview. And if there's any issue, any reason you would like to contact Rosalyn for services, I will include your website and your email address so that anybody can contact you. And
Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next episode.